I told him he wasn't enough for me anymore, and I thought he'd fight to keep me. Instead, he completely erased me from his life. I'm Brooke, 27, and I seriously miscalculated how this would all play out. Lucas and I had been together for 9 months, and at first everything was perfect. He'd surprise me with thoughtful gifts, plan cute dates, and always text back within minutes. But lately, he'd been slacking. Sometimes taking hours to respond, forgetting to compliment my new outfits, and twice he even fell asleep during our movie nights. My best friend Amy always says, "You train men how to treat you early, or you'll regret it later." So when Lucas started getting too comfortable, I decided to shake things up. Nothing crazy, just a small test to make him realize what he stood to lose. I'd tell him I needed more attention, that he wasn't enough for me anymore, and that I deserved better. Then he'd panic, beg for another chance, maybe even show up with flowers. And boom, relationship reset. So I did it. I invited him over, sat him down, and told him straight, "Lucas, this isn't working for me anymore. You're not attentive enough, and honestly, I deserve better." I even added a dramatic pause for effect, but instead of the desperate pleading I expected, he just looked at me for a long moment, nodded, and said, "If that's how you feel, I won't waste any more of your time." Then he just left, got up and walked out my door. No argument, no tears, no promising to change, nothing. I was shocked. That wasn't how this was supposed to go at all, but I figured he just needed time to process. He'd call later that night, maybe after a few drinks with his friends for courage. But my phone stayed silent. I checked it about 50 times before bed, convinced I'd missed a notification somehow. By morning, I was getting annoyed. I went to check his Instagram, and that's when I discovered he'd blocked me. Not just there, but on everything. Facebook, Snapchat, even LinkedIn. I tried calling him, and it went straight to voicemail. My text showed as undelivered. This man had literally erased me from his digital life overnight. I called Amy in a panic. He blocked me everywhere. I practically screamed when she answered. "Relax," she said, sounding half asleep. "It's all part of the game. He's trying to make you sweat." "This doesn't feel like a game," I said, pacing around my apartment. "He's never done anything like this before." "That's because your test worked," Amy insisted. "You pushed him, and now he's reacting. Trust me, he'll be back." I wanted to believe her. I really did. But when I asked our mutual friend to check if Lucas had blocked her too, she said no. But his relationship status had already changed to single, and he'd posted some quote about knowing your worth, just hours after our breakup. Days turned into a week, and still nothing from Lucas. I started checking my phone less obsessively, telling myself I didn't care. But then a week turned into 2, and I found myself driving past his apartment building, coincidentally on my way to places. "He'll crack soon," Amy promised when we met for drinks that weekend. Taylor and Jessica nodded in agreement. No guy just walks away from 9 months without looking back. But Lucas didn't come back. 2 weeks became 3, then 4. A whole month of complete silence. No calls, no texts, nothing. It was like he'd vanished. Or worse, like he'd moved on without a second thought. I still checked my phone constantly, hoping to see his name pop up. As each day passed with nothing, a horrible thought kept creeping in. What if my test hadn't revealed his true feelings for me, but mine for him? Because now that he was gone, really gone, I realized just how much I missed him. Not just the attention or the security of having a boyfriend. I missed him. His stupid jokes, his enthusiasm for obscure history documentaries, the way he always knew when I needed space or a hug. After a full month of silence, I had to admit that something had gone very wrong with my plan. This was supposed to be a quick reset, not whatever this had become. "Let me use your Instagram," I demanded when I was at Amy's place for wine night. She handed over her phone. I immediately went to Lucas's profile, which I could now only view through friends' accounts. My stomach dropped when I scrolled through his recent posts. There he was, smiling with friends at some bar I'd never heard of. Another photo showed him hiking. He'd always claimed to hate hiking when we were together. And worst of all, a post about some coding class he'd started taking. "Expanding my skills. Never too late to learn something new. Fresh start," the caption read. "He looks happy," I said, trying to keep my voice neutral, even as my insides twisted. "It's all for show," Amy insisted. taking her phone back. He's obviously staging these to make you think he's moved on. But I wasn't so sure anymore. There was something genuine about his smile in those photos. Something I hadn't seen in a while. I created a fake Instagram account just to keep tabs on him. I told myself I was just gathering intelligence, figuring out when would be the right time to reach out again. But really, I was looking for any sign that he was suffering without me. He wasn't. Lucas seemed to be thriving. More social outings, a haircut that actually looked good, posts about work achievements. His life appeared to be moving forward perfectly fine without me, while I was left obsessing over his every digital move. I started driving by his apartment regularly. Once, I saw him come out with his friend Axel, both laughing about something. I slid down in my seat, heart pounding, feeling both desperate to be seen and terrified of being caught. My work started to suffer. I couldn't concentrate, kept making mistakes on reports. My boss called me into her office to ask if everything was all right. Just going through some personal stuff, I said vaguely. But of course, it continued to affect my performance. I wasn't sleeping well. Every night, I'd lie awake replaying our last conversation, thinking of what I could have said differently. I'd draft long texts to him, only to remember that he'd blocked my number. Taylor and Jessica started exchanging looks when I'd bring him up for the 20th time in a conversation. "Don't you think it might be time to move on?" Jessica suggested gently. "It's been a month, Brooke." "I am moved on," I snapped, even as I was scrolling through old photos of us. "I'm just curious about what he's up to. It's not like I care." But I did care. I cared so much it was consuming me. The more time passed, the more I realized I'd made a terrible mistake. Not because my test had backfired, but because I'd thrown away something real for a stupid power play. As the 6th week of silence stretched on, I made a decision. This had gone on long enough. If Lucas wasn't going to reach out to me, then I would go to him, in person, where he couldn't just block me or delete my message. That weekend, I put on the outfit he'd always said looked best on me, did my makeup perfectly, and drove to his apartment. My heart pounded as I walked up to his door. I took a deep breath and knocked. After what felt like forever, the door opened. Lucas stood there, looking genuinely shocked to see me. Before he could say anything, I launched into my carefully rehearsed speech. "Lucas, when I said you weren't enough for me, I didn't really mean it. I was just testing you. Seeing if you'd fight for us, and when you didn't, I was disappointed. But I'm willing to give us another chance if you'll promise to be more attentive this time." I smiled, waiting for the relief to wash over his face, for him to pull me into his arms and thank me for coming back. Instead, he just stared at me. "You were testing me?" he finally asked, his voice flat. "Well, yes," I said, thrown off by his tone. "Women test men all the time, it's normal." Lucas let out a short, incredulous laugh. "So you broke up with me, told me I wasn't good enough for you, as a test, and now you're here to, what, take me back?" "I'm giving us another chance," I repeated, more firmly. "But you failed the test, Lucas. You were supposed to fight for me, not block me everywhere." He stared at me for a long moment, then shook his head. "Brooke, relationships aren't built on manipulative tests. They're built on honesty, respect, and trust, none of which you seem to understand." And then, before I could respond, he closed the door. Right in my face. I stood there stunned, then started knocking again. "Lucas, open the door. We're not done talking." I kept knocking, alternating between pleading and demanding, for what must have been 10 minutes. But the door remained firmly shut. Finally, I gave up and stormed back to my car, humiliation burning through me. How dare he? After I'd generously offered to take him back, he had the audacity to reject me? As soon as I got home, I called Amy. He slammed the door in my face. I fumed, pacing around my living room. "What a jerk," she agreed immediately. "After everything you two had together? That's so immature." Her validation fueled my anger. I started texting Taylor and Jessica too, and soon all three of them were sending messages to Lucas, telling him how unreasonable he was being, how testing was normal, and how he was overreacting. "He needs to know this isn't just coming from you," Amy insisted. "He needs to see that everyone thinks he's in the wrong here." I fell asleep that night, expecting Lucas to finally see reason when faced with our united front. But instead of a contrite message, I woke up to find that he'd blocked all of my friends too. And worse, When I checked my fake Instagram account, I saw he'd gone private. My last window into his life had been closed. This called for more drastic measures. If Lucas thought he could just erase me and move on, he was about to find out how wrong he was. The next few weeks became a blur of increasingly desperate attempts to get Lucas's attention. I'd show up at places I knew he frequented, his favorite coffee shop, the gym where he worked out, even driving by his office. Sometimes I'd catch glimpses of him, but he'd always spot me too quickly, his expression hardening before he'd deliberately turn away. I started telling mutual friends about how poorly Lucas had treated me, spinning a version of events where I was the victim. He just completely cut me off, without any explanation, I'd say, conveniently leaving out the part where I'd told him he wasn't enough for me. Most people were sympathetic at first, but Lucas had friends too, and I could tell from the increasingly cool reception I got in certain social circles that he was telling his side of the story as well. Things came to a head at our mutual friend Zach's birthday party. I knew Lucas would be there, and I'd prepared for a casual run-in where I could show him how great I was doing. I spent hours getting ready, determined to look effortlessly beautiful. When I arrived, Lucas was already there. Our eyes met briefly before he deliberately looked away. After a few drinks, my resolve to remain aloof crumbled. I made my way over to where he was standing. "So you're just going to pretend I don't exist?" I demanded, loud enough that several people turned to look. Lucas sighed. "Brooke, this isn't the time or place." "When is the time? You've blocked me everywhere. You slammed doors in my face. What am I supposed to do?" "Move on," he said simply. "Like I have." Something snapped inside me. "You want to know why I really broke up with you?" I said, my voice rising. "Because you were boring, predictable. I got tired of pretending to be interested in your stupid hobbies and your mediocre." "Enough." Lucas cut me off, his voice firm but calm. Then, addressing the growing crowd of onlookers, he said, "I'm sorry about this. Brooke and I broke up over a month ago. She told me I wasn't enough for her and that she deserved better." I tried to interrupt, but he continued. "I accepted her decision and chose to make a clean break. Since then, she's created fake accounts to monitor me, shown up at my apartment unannounced, and had her friends bombard me with messages." The room had gone uncomfortably quiet. Lucas pulled out his phone and showed a few people nearby. "Here are the texts from her and her friends, claiming she was just testing me. And here's the security footage from my apartment building, showing her sitting in her car outside for hours last week." I felt the blood drain from my face. He had security footage? And he was showing people? "I've asked her repeatedly to leave me alone," Lucas concluded. "I'm sharing this now because I'm out of options." I looked around the room, expecting to see people rally to my defense. Instead, I saw uncomfortable expressions, averted gazes, and a few people looking at me with what could only be described as pity or disgust. "You're twisting everything," I said, but my voice sounded weak even to my own ears. Jessica gently touched my arm. "I think we should go," she said quietly. As she led me outside, I caught snippets of conversation behind us. Always thought there was something off about her. Can you imagine testing someone like that? Poor Lucas. I'd come to the party expecting to regain the upper hand. Instead, I just publicly destroyed what was left of my reputation. In the weeks that followed, my social circle shrank dramatically. People who'd been friendly before now took longer to respond to my texts, if they responded at all. Invitations dried up. Even Jessica and Taylor started keeping their distance. Only Amy remained steadfastly on my side, but even she had started suggesting that maybe it was time to focus on meeting someone new, rather than wasting energy on Lucas. Then I saw it, a photo on a mutual friend's Instagram that made my stomach drop. Lucas with his arm around a woman I didn't recognize. She was pretty in an understated way, laughing at something off camera. The caption read, "Fun night with these two. Nice to see you happy at Lucas Mitchell. Happy with someone else." Just 3 months after we'd broken up, I immediately clicked on the tagged profile, Piper Williams. Her account was public, giving me full access to her life. I spent hours scrolling through her photos, analyzing every detail. She was a graphic designer, had a small dog, seemed to like hiking and craft beer, two things Lucas had never expressed interest in when we were together. I compared myself to her obsessively. I was prettier, I decided, more stylish, certainly more fun. She looked like the type who'd be happy staying in on a Friday night. Lucas would be bored with her in no time. But as more photos of them together began appearing, I had to face an uncomfortable truth. Lucas didn't look bored. He looked genuinely happy. Relaxed in a way he rarely had been with me. She's just a rebound, Amy insisted when I showed her the pictures. Men always go for the opposite of their ex right after a breakup. It never lasts. I clung to this theory desperately. Lucas and Piper were doomed. He was just using her to get over me. Soon he'd realize his mistake and come back. But days turned into weeks, and Lucas and Piper were still together. Meanwhile, my own life felt increasingly empty. Work was just something I endured. My friendships felt strained. Even Amy had started to sound exasperated when I brought up Lucas. I tried dating apps briefly, but found myself comparing every match to Lucas. After a few disastrous first dates, I gave up altogether. Instead, I doubled down on my monitoring of Lucas and Piper's relationship. I created elaborate scenarios in my head about how she was wrong for him, how he must be miserable but putting on a brave face. I sent him messages from new numbers when I was feeling particularly desperate, only to be blocked again each time. Eventually, even Amy, Taylor, and Jessica staged a kind of intervention. "This isn't healthy, Brooke," Jessica said gently. "It's been months. You need to let this go." "I'm worried about you," Taylor added. "You're not yourself anymore. All you talk about is Lucas. He's moved on," Amy finally admitted, "and you need to as well." I nodded and promised I would try, but as soon as they left, I was back on social media, searching for new photos of Lucas and Piper, looking for any sign that their relationship was faltering. There were none. If anything, they seemed to be getting more serious. Lucas had started appearing in family photos on Piper's account. They'd taken a weekend trip together. In every image, they looked content. The realization that I had truly lost Lucas, not just temporarily, but permanently, hit me with unexpected force. This wasn't how my story was supposed to end. I was supposed to be the one who moved on first, who found someone better, who showed Lucas what he'd lost. I decided to try one last time. 6 months after our breakup, I happened to spot Lucas and Piper at a coffee shop near my apartment. I say happened to spot, but the truth is, I'd seen Lucas check in there on social media and deliberately went there, hoping to run into them. They were sitting at a corner table, heads bent close together over something on Piper's laptop. They looked so comfortable together, so in sync. A wave of jealousy washed over me. I approached their table, heart pounding. "Lucas," I said, forcing a smile. "What a surprise." They both looked up, Lucas's expression immediately shifting from relaxed to guarded. Piper glanced between us, clearly recognizing me from Lucas's description. "Brooke," Lucas acknowledged with a curt nod. "We were just leaving." "No, please," I said quickly. "I just want to talk. 5 minutes, for closure." Lucas hesitated, then turned to Piper. "Give us a minute?" She nodded, squeezing his hand before gathering her things and heading to the counter, keeping a respectful distance but still within eyesight. I sat down across from Lucas, suddenly unsure what to say. "You look good," I finally offered. "What do you want, Brooke?" Lucas asked, not unkindly but with clear boundaries in his voice. I don't understand how you moved on so quickly," I blurted out. "We were together for 9 months. Didn't that mean anything to you?" Lucas sighed. "Of course it did. But our relationship ended the moment you decided I wasn't enough for you. And frankly, your behavior since then has only confirmed that ending things was the right decision." "My behavior? I was hurt. You blocked me everywhere without even giving me a chance to explain." "There was nothing to explain," Lucas said firmly. "You were clear about what you wanted. I respected your decision and chose to make a clean break." "It was a test," I insisted. "Just a stupid test that got out of hand." Lucas looked at me with something close to pity. "Relationships shouldn't involve tests, Brooke, and the fact that you still don't see anything wrong with what you did is exactly why we could never work." I felt tears welling in my eyes. "So that's it? You've just replaced me and moved on?" "I haven't replaced you. Piper and I have something completely different. Something healthy." He paused, then added, "I need to tell you something. I filed for a restraining order. Your continued attempts to contact me, showing up where I am, monitoring my social media, it needs to stop." The words hit me like a physical blow. A restraining order? Are you serious? It goes into effect tomorrow, he said. I didn't want to do this, but you've left me no choice. As the reality of his words sank in, I felt a surge of anger. You're making me sound crazy. I just wanted to talk to you. This isn't just about today, Lucas said, getting up. It's about the past 6 months of unwanted contact after I made it clear I wanted to move on. I'm sorry it came to this. He walked over to Piper, who gave me one last glance, not smug or victorious, just sad, before they left together. I sat there, stunned and humiliated. The coffee shop had gone oddly quiet, and I suddenly realized people at nearby tables were looking at me. 2 women at the next table were whispering to each other, occasionally glancing my way. Some people just can't take a hint, one of them said, not quite quietly enough. My sister's ex was like that. Total psycho. That poor guy, her friend replied. You can just tell he tried to be nice about it. I wanted to scream at them, to tell them they had no idea what they were talking about. But as I opened my mouth, I caught sight of my reflection in the window. Wild-eyed, tear-streaked makeup, hands clenched into fists, I looked exactly like the crazy ex they thought I was. For a brief, startling moment, I saw myself as others must see me. Not as the wronged party in a love story, but as the villain. The manipulator, the one who couldn't let go. The realization was like ice water down my back. Had I really become this person? But even as this moment of clarity washed over me, another part of my brain was already formulating excuses. If only Lucas had reacted differently to my test. If only he'd fought for me like he was supposed to. If only he hadn't moved on so quickly with Piper. None of this would have happened. I gathered my things and walked out of the coffee shop, aware of the eyes following me. Outside, the world continued as normal. People walked by, living their lives, while mine had shattered into unrecognizable pieces. I had no boyfriend, fewer friends, a reputation in tatters, and now an actual legal document declaring me a threat, all because of a stupid test that backfired spectacularly. As I walked to my car alone, I couldn't escape the weight of my own actions. For the first time, I had to face the possibility that I was the architect of my own misery. But accepting that would mean accepting responsibility, and that was something I still wasn't ready to do.